you so much for coming out, sharing your time with us. We really appreciate it. So guys, we're going to jump right into if you all have some questions and everything. And what I've been noticing is we get started, and then all of a sudden, about 10, 15 minutes, then all of a sudden everybody's got a question, and it's time to go. So if you got questions, let's crank it up. Go ahead and raise your hand. I'll come to you. I'll try to get everybody.
This is not his first rodeo.
So you were in the show Limitless, and of course that was a movie before. So how does it feel to come into a show that kind of has a fan base, but you're not one of the main characters?
It was confusing because I felt like the show was a complete departure from the movie. But I mean, Bradley Cooper was involved, you know, so the transition felt pretty seamless. And you know, if we weren't shooting on Saturdays and Sundays, I would say it was pretty fun to make. But it was just nonstop, just like watching it. It comes at you so quickly, and so did the work. It was I hardly remember it. It all happened so fast.
And my entire family loves you as Dexter, sister Dexter. You know, you hear that all the time. But, which I did as well.
Yeah.
But Emily Rose,
Oh,
I know, that's I've watched it more than once, more than twice. The scene where you're on the floor and you turn your head around and
yeah.
that's still, you know, just thinking about it right now, it sits there and makes you think like that. But I can almost say that if Emily was here right now, she would say you nailed that.
Oh, thanks.
That whole movie. I mean, you were beyond in that. It was incredible. More than the actress, you took on the role itself and the person. So if you put you two together, you wouldn't be able to tell you apart. I mean, that's how I feel, and that's how I walked away from that movie. Not only was I scared to death, but still, you were awesome in it. But my question is, out of that movie being as scary as it was, what was, even though you were behind the scenes, the star, you were the role, what was the scariest scene for you that you had to do that when you look back, like even though right now you can just kind of go,
Well, you're right. I mean, there was a real person behind the film, and her therapist actually wrote a book on her treatment. So, you know, the descriptions of how her body moved, and, you know, she was bucking like a donkey up the stairs, or, you know, like just deciding that I was going to be a chainsaw. I would just like make the voice sound like a chainsaw at any given moment. Like all of that was there, and a constant reminder that it wasn't a game, that somebody really was suffering, whether they were possessed or they were dying of malnutrition, whatever it was. So I think the scariest part for me was, you know, I decided that there was this entity in her when I was trying to prove one side of the case, that she was inside trying to kick it out, right? So in the barn, when her little sister comes in and discovers her, for a second, I imagined that Emily would be like trying to save her sister, like don't watch this, you know, and then the entity would pull her back down. But that happened in the barn. So for me, the barn was the scariest, and there was so much huffing and puffing and yelling back and forth, and I couldn't see because I was wearing these contacts, so I was totally blind during all of that, and I fainted during a take, but no one could really tell because my eyes were still there. So I fainted and then came back to, and they were still rolling, so I just kept going, and it's in the movie. I don't know if maybe you could try to find it
That's
the next
great.
time.
right back here.
And then I got a tank of oxygen, and the medics were coming.
So in Dexter, I loved your role, but I hated how they ended your character.
Yes, yes.
A little bit, did you have
Happy to
this?
talk about it.
Yeah, can you talk about that? And do you think they'll ever reboot Dexter?
So I'll say this. Like a lot of people in something that you care about, you go, are you all as cold as I am? I feel like
It's cold.
I go all in, right? Oh no, don't do it. Oh, thanks. You know, it's a pear juice. Puffy paint, I was just noticing some guys, I kind of dig it.
Oh, jeez.
This is amazing. And it works, thanks, sorry. Thank you. I go all in, right? So the idea that I was going to be living this life alongside Deb for 8 years, and then no one was going to tell me how she felt and if she was okay and if she ever got her happiness or her happy ending or whatever. Not, you know what I mean? And I couldn't live with that. So I was an advocate for her dying and being put out of her misery. That part I was okay with. Do I think they could have spent a few more screen minutes of how they dumped her in the ocean? Sure. I thought it should have been some scene of like the white sheets in the water, her floating down like the angel that she was, and all of that good stuff, but we just didn't have time for that because we had to get to the woods. So I think when I read where Dexter was landing, I just thought, well, change it or kill me now, you know? And I was pretty disappointed that that's where we left it. So in that respect, I do think that Dexter was in the right place at the right time and had a hand in maybe changing what television could do for audiences, and that audiences were smart enough and ready for something that challenged them and their comfort zones. So for that reason, I'd like for Dexter to come back and like stake another flag in the moon and be like, we're here, you know? But it has to be right. I'm not afraid to say no to the thing that's wrong, you know?
How did you like working on White Chicks, and
Yes.
what was your favorite scene?
I got to quit waiting tables at a sushi restaurant when I got that job, so I liked it a lot. And, you know, I didn't know anything at all. I called my agent 3 times, like, are you sure that I'm gonna get to do this before I quit my job? But that's the movie that I learned, like, how to hit a mark and, like, what all the lingo meant. And Busy Phillips and I are still very good friends, so it was super fun. I mean, I didn't think I was doing very well in it because, you know, it's the Wayans brothers. They have a lot to talk about, but not to me. So, like, when I was doing the dressing room scene, I couldn't hear anyone, I couldn't see anyone, so I didn't know if I was doing it right, if people were laughing or not. So it was hard. Oh, good. I'm so glad. Do I wish I could do it again? Yeah. I feel like I could. Like, I wish we could make that movie again. It was so fun.
Excellent.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
Actually, I have a 2-part question. First one is, I know you've done like a lot of film and TV shows that's kind of horror genre. I didn't know if that was just coincidence or if that's some of the projects that you gravitated to. And secondly, all the roles that you played, which one, I guess, is the most memorable, that struck a most personal chord with you?
Well, thanks for that question, because I feel like once people see you cry or suffer, then that's kind of, you're their go-to girl for that. So I actually thought that I was always cast as a clown in school, so I always thought that I would be doing comedy, but it's a long road back to that, but I'm trying. So yeah, maybe I'm a little typecast there. And my favorite role, sorry I've already talked about it, but it was Emily Rose. I really loved it. I really did.
Valerie, when you do a serial drama TV show, you are that character, but I know you've got to argue with the writers somewhat. Do you have this story where you've gone back and said, I've been Deb for so many years, I don't think she would say this or do this?
Yeah, there was, in season 7, there was a writer who I really respected, was very good friends with, and he wrote something that was just not true. I knew what was coming down the pipeline, and if he shot the scene and said these things, and it's just not true. You owe the audience the truth. And I'm not gonna I'm not gonna look like I missed that. So we had to stop production. It was the middle of the night, and luckily our writers were on the same lot as us, which rarely happens now. Everybody's on different coasts. But he had to come down, and in front of the crew and the rest of the cast, I had to fight, and he had to fight back because he's being told what he has to do. So it was a tough road, but honestly, when that kind of thing happens on the clock, decisions get made quickly. So I think we worked our way out of that one, but it is tough because they worked their butts off and they're smarter than me. Hi.
Hi, obviously I'm a huge fan. My husband is too. He just wore the wrong Dexter shirt. That's still Dexter.
That's very funny.
Dexter's Lab. My question is about your new series, The Enemy Within. I've only gotten to see obviously what everyone else has, but it's such a multifaceted character, and she's not just one dimension. What about that character resonates with you, as far as how far would you go to make sure the loved one, it's like the Star Trek question, what's worth more, one or the many?
Yeah. Well, let's see. From day one, I didn't think it was enough to say that, I gave up 4 operatives because I wanted to save my daughter. I didn't think that was enough. The stakes weren't high enough. So I wrote my own story about what really happened, and that's what I spent my time playing the whole season. So, I know that the writers were writing one thing, but I spent a lot of time, I think, trying to make it harder for me, because I think if you give away in the pilot episode, like, she's just a good person trying to save her daughter, then what are we watching the rest of it for, and why is she in prison, and all that good stuff. So it felt, honestly, I was trying to do the same thing that I did in Emily Rose, which was not ever tell you if I'm good or bad, because I don't think that it's that simple anymore, especially in the day and age that we live in, and all the news that you read. Like, if you look at one thread of something, then it's going to be that simple, and you're going to be that much smarter than everybody else. But life is more complex than that. So, I tried to give people clues that she was in line with Tall, and then I tried to give people clues that she absolutely wasn't. So I'm kind of sad that I don't get to make that big reveal.
Right over here.
How do you like doing the voiceover stuff you've done? I've seen both your the Batman and the Black Widow stuff. How have you enjoyed that? Do you want to do more of that?
I love it. I want to be in the room with all of the people that you're doing that with. It's strange to do it alone, but it's funny. I get more nervous to do stuff like that than I do for on-camera stuff, because there's such a huge following and people are so loyal to those films. I just don't want to mess anything up. So I feel like I do more research for those sometimes than the regular TV shows.
This has been pretty much my go-to question this weekend. Is there a character that you have not played, maybe in a book, a movie, or something from your past that you might want to bring to life on the big screen?
Yes, there's this. Well, I want to do a comedy. I feel like the thing I love about comedy is it's like math. If it adds up to a laugh, then you're doing it correctly, And I feel like I get that kind of math, but I haven't been able to showcase that. I don't know if you all have ever heard of a photographer named Vivian Meyer. Somebody, you can throw your hands up if I'm boring, and then I'll stop talking about it. But this guy, like in a storage war scenario in Chicago, he bought this storage, everything that was in this storage facility. He opened this trunk, and there was all this undeveloped film. And he developed it, and it was this nanny who, she was from Europe, somewhere in Europe, and she would nanny all these children and take them to like the worst parts of like downtown Chicago, and like take all these really candid photos. And the sales were incredible. She's like the highest selling photography art in the country, maybe the world, I don't know. But her story is really crazy. She started out very loving. She would sort of enmesh herself into these families, and then she turned abusive at the end. But her story is really wild and interesting. Not a comedy, but I feel like I'd like to play her.
Got a question here, and then I'll go right down there.
Thanks for your persistence. I've seen your hand up every time.
And I almost feel guilty because this is my next one again.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I thought you had.
Hi, Emily. I'm still stuck on the Emily Rose, but this one's for my daughter that could not be here because she had to work today. She was wanting to know what your favorite season of Dexter was.
Oh, wow.
And I know, you got to narrow it down for her, and why. And for me, if you can go as far as the Emily on this, but was there any bloopers that you might have been in? I really can't see any bloopers in
On
Emily Rose. Yeah, I kind of doubt there was.
I didn't mess up a single take.
Well, that's what
Yes!
Was there any in Dexter then that you might like to share?
Sure, tons.
Please,
yes,
the season and the blooper.
Oh man, they should have made a bloopers thing. They did for us. I don't know whatever happened to it, but what was the first one? What was the first question?
His favorite season.
Oh, favorite season. I mean, 3, right? Lithgow. I mean, I had nothing to do with it, but he was incredible. He could be a teddy bear or a grizzly bear, just depending on what he was playing. Yeah, Dexter was fun. I mean, Desmond was so hilarious, and Masuka, Batista. It was such a good time. So I do miss it. I mean, for that reason, I think I kind of hope that they bring it back just to see what it would be like.
Thank you. Next question.
Thanks for being here. My wife would agree with you on my persistence. Back to Emily Rose. That movie being based on a true story, and Annalise Michel, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, I mean, it's from the 50s, and the dilemma between, criminal negligence versus an issue of faith. It's brutal and it's terrifying, and the audio, you all know this, the audio's out there, and the entire case and all the information. People working on the film, did they, I know it's a good story, but were there people who had feelings of one way or the other back to the presentation in court, and a decision had to be made? And were there people working on the film who had a feeling one way or the other? Maybe they were faithful, or they felt that this was just a case of psychopathy or something along those lines.
Well, I feel like, it really is 2 movies in one, and I was in one half of it. So I was kind of incubated in this part of it where I felt like I was flooded with caretaking. I was flooded with taking care of my part, also feeling very green. I was new to working, so I was just trying to please everyone and do it right. And then the people that I think saw how committed we all were, it was kind of a quiet set, we weren't really, I don't think anybody wanted to get in anyone's way. Whether you were operating camera or you were doing hair and makeup, everybody just kind of kept to themselves. And the truth is, I kind of struggle with the idea that if she was possessed, she still technically died of malnutrition.
Yes.
So if you wanted to keep her alive to try to deal with the possession, someone should have been sure that she was eating
care
or
for
being
it,
fed,
yeah.
or all that good stuff. So I don't know. And then there's a part of me that's like, if life is that miserable,
sure, then
go rest in peace or something. I don't know. I mean, also these thoughts are not fresh anymore. I don't know.
No.
There are parts of that movie that still haunt me. There are. That movie changed me in ways, in a lot of ways. So. I'm cold. I'm not about to cry.
Very convincing in that film. Very convincing.
Got a question over here?
So Deb had a creative mouth. I imagine, you're in an episode and they figure, well, she's already said 30 F-bombs, what's another 10? How was the process with that? Was there a lot of ad-libbing with the types of things you were saying, or was it all in the script? And do you have a favorite line that she said? My personal favorite is when she found out Rita was pregnant.
Oh, yeah. There was I don't know that I was like the biggest ad-libber, but I would say when we said it that way, last episode, maybe we say it this way or whatever. But it also is odd, when you're saying the F word that many times, that often, it really does come to you it doesn't, but then once I've said it a million times and I want it to have effect and I've already, cashed it in, then it becomes fun to figure out, well, how can I drop it and make it count or something. Oh yeah, I saw the finger painted fuck on the back of the shirt. Yeah.
Next question over here.
Thank you. Certainly appreciate having you in Knoxville. Here's a 2-part question. One on the language. Do you get asked to sign much with Deborah's colorful vocabulary?
20% of the time. Yeah.
Love the Dexter series, also love the Dexter books. And I'm just curious, do the books serve still as good source material even though the storytelling goes in completely different directions?
We used the first season. The first book was the stepping stone, and then they marched on their own path, because that was always the plan. But Jeff Lindsay did come, I think it was like the sixth or seventh season. He brought his kids out to the set and they toured it. And he was certainly there for the pilot as well, but he was really supportive, even though it didn't go its own way. And I think he even mentioned that his kids got to go to college on it, so that was very good. But he's a gentleman, he's very nice.
Next question right over here.
What was your favorite scene from White Chicks?
Oh, sorry, I did ask that. I mean, the convertible scene where we all got to sing, the best part was they made us learn this rap that was, really graphic and whatnot. And so I spent the whole night like learning that rap song over and over and over, and they used like that much of it. I worked so hard on it. And then the dance off, they had Tina Landon. I can't believe I remember her name. I'm terrible with names. But she did the Britney Spears Toxic video, the choreography for it. This one, like that. And, so she choreographed the dance for all of us, and then we got to the set to do the dance off with the other team. And they said, oh, it's too good. They have to be bad dancers. So then we had to dumb it down after all that hard work and practice. That was a good note.
Next question.
Hi, Jennifer, again. Can you share any stories or any memorable moments from when you did the movie Quarantine?
Oh, sure, yeah, God. That's a hard one to, I actually made charts for that one, because you can't go 100 miles an hour the whole time, or people will just get exhausted and they'll get glazed over for it. So trying to find moments where you could peak and find a valley and, have different levels to it. But it was all shot in one sound stage, so it kind of felt like Groundhog's Day over and over and over. And then Columbus Short was in that movie, and everybody was just like muscling through it. And then finally one day we all started talking to each other, and it was the funniest, happiest work environment ever on Columbus, and it was hilarious. It was a great way to spend the day, actually. Joey King was in that movie. Look at her now. Really?
Got another question right over here. Squeeze right next to you.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
First, I want to say that I love Dexter, and actually, Dave is the reason I started watching it, because I had in-laws that didn't particularly like me, so me and my wife at the time were scrolling the channels, and it was on a scene where Deb has like these pictures everywhere, and she comes up on a thing and she says, like real loud, and they kind of got offended, and I was like, this is my favorite show now. So my question is, some part in the show, it's teased that Deb and Dexter kind of have this underlying romance. How did you feel about those scenes?
I went straight to his trailer and I was like, what the fuck? That's exactly what I did. Went to the producers, what the fuck?
Next question.
Hi, I'm also a fan of the movie White Chicks. Two-part question is, what did they say your character's inheritance from, since you're a part of the Hampton crowd?
I love that you're asking me this. I don't remember or know. We did have to fill out character sheets, which is like, I was so offended. I was like, I studied. You think I don't know? Like, I have to figure out my character's background. I wouldn't remember what it was now, but we did have to, they handed out these worksheets that we had to turn in to say what our character's background was.
Do you also wish that they could have developed your character a little bit more than being kind of a side character?
Honestly, I like I said, it was my first job, so no. I was so nervous. I just wanted to watch and figure out how it all was supposed to go. But if they did a remake, yeah, I'd want to go knock it out.
Next question back here.
All right, so was it awkward to work with your husband at the time on
Awkward?
Dexter?
That's not the adjective that I would use.
Like, I know my grandma, she says she likes going to work to get away from my grandpa. So, like if you're working with your husband, do you get annoyed with him easily?
Yeah. You know, it was, you know when you have a new experience in life and you're like, oh my God, I don't even know where to organize that. Where do I put that? It's like, it just feels so alien. I felt like an alien for about a year. And then it just kind of, the truth of the matter is it was, we were a family at that point. I mean, the whole crew and all of the cast. And so it was either going to be, you know, an easy place to work, or it could have been a hard place to work. And I just made it my mission to make it an easy place to work. And, you know, women are really strong, aren't we? Yeah.
Next question back here.
But we're very good friends now. I mean, yeah. And we're then too. It's just, I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Hello, I love your stuff. I was running behind, so I hope this wasn't covered. When you did the work for Emily Rose, did you have to practice contortionism, or was that you? Because it didn't look like a double.
Yeah, they were doing all the special effects in this warehouse in Burbank, and so they gave me a room that was, you know, full of mirrors and cameras, and like I was just able to sort of choreograph it and then watch what I was doing. So yeah, I probably did more prep on that job than any other ever. Yeah.
Next question.
That was actually my question, so now I'm on the fly. Back to the Emily Rose, that was the actual perfect question, because I was thinking of the floor scene and you leaning back like that. That was just beyond the acting. Yeah, and it was definitely scary, as my wife said, and she comments constantly on how many times I had to watch it and how bad it bothered her when she had to watch it. Is there any chance of any type of movie that you're going to do in the future like that? Can you give us any type of something that you may be looking at as far as a horror movie that goes? Or because I mean, I know you love the comedy and all that, but the heart, you just nailed that.
I mean, I really love working with Craig Zoller. He did Bone Tomahawk and Dragged Across Concrete and Cell Block 99. So I mean, I wouldn't say that he's like a horror director, but there's certainly some grit to what he does, and I kind of go where he goes. You can never get ahead of him or his writing. So he's working on Hug Chicken Penny. That's the next one. So I've been told that I'm going to be invited to that one, so I'm just waiting around.
Next question.
All right, my niece is trying to break into the industry. She's done some extra work, and she did a little indie film waiting to see if it gets green-lighted. But what is some good information someone's starting out or something they can do to help them in this industry?
You know, I mean, I think it's persistence, really, and then faith in yourself. And also, I have to say, like, my training, you know, I've been doing it since I was 8 and was going to like a conservatory for kids when I was younger, and then went to Juilliard to train. So like you know, there are a lot of people who can, I think that like to do something like Emily Rose, where you have to, for 4 months, be willing to put yourself in that spot and be able to come out of it and still be healthy and maintain good relationships in your life and all that good stuff. It takes a lot of practice. So if you believe this is what you're supposed to do and you are 100% passionate about it, then work hard and keep working hard. And it's not if you'll get a job, but when, and then what do you do with it? But it's different for every single person, you know.
Next question down front.
Okay, last one for me, I guess.
Okay.
For now. Have you ever, because a lot of actors that have come up here, a lot of people on the Q&A panels have said, you know, I wrote this, I wanted to get it into the show, but they wouldn't, kind of thing. With everything in your mind for Deb, for any of your characters, have you ever actually put anything on paper? Have you written anything for your character?
If you watch The Enemy Within, I don't know if you saw, there's a scene between her and her daughter where she is basically thinking that she might be seeing her for the last time. Is the second to last episode. That we were shooting that scene that evening, and I read it that morning because it had just come in, and said no, and just spent the whole scene that day that we were working on. I just rewrote the whole thing, and I said, I'm just going to go in and try this, and if everybody's okay with it, we can just shoot this, and we kept it. So I wrote that whole thing.
Next question right over here.
Hi, I was just wondering, have you ever played a role that changed a viewpoint of yours? For instance, like Emily Rose before, one of, as an example, no, possession's not a real thing, and after, well, maybe, kind of thing.
I mean, I think that was at play with Enemy Within, because behind those two entities, the FBI and CIA, there's so many politics, and it's such a button these days that, you know, there used to be a time when people would let you say what you believed or where your politics were lying at a certain point, and people would say, well, I totally disagree, but I respect your opinion, and that doesn't happen anymore. And I feel like living in a world like the CIA or hovering around the FBI, that old school way of being had to be at play. So I was trying to practice that a bit. So I think maybe I became a little more resilient at that. Maybe a little. Yeah, sure, thank you.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Make them long.
And yet, I can do that. This one, we was actually in your line yesterday, and you know, you were doing your thing, and everybody was smiling, happy. When everybody was leaving, they were looking at their stuff, and you could see the glow in their face. But something that I also noticed, there was a line right next to you, and about 7 or 8 of the gentlemen, they were like all like this. They were like staring you down, like big time. And you do not look like you've aged a day. I mean, do you get that everywhere you go?
No.
We actually have pictures because we were in line, and I mean, you are absolutely gorgeous. But, well, of course, I mean, duh. But every one of them there were just like, oh my gosh, they were like staring.
I have to go back there, so let's not talk about it.
They were actually in Pee Wee Herman's line, but you know, I know. But just saying, I was just wondering, do you get that everywhere you go? You just like walking down the street, you know, paparazzi, dude. Really? Well, then you need to come back to Knoxville more often, because you will get I'm not completely
Where's that
serious.
question?
That was the question. That was the question. Did you get that?
No.
Really?
No.
Why? I
mean, because
okay, I'll sit down. I'll do it.
Next question. What's your favorite overall behind-the-scenes moment?
Ooh, of anything ever? Okay. So in season 8, I think it is, of Dexter, Michael had to drive this car into like a lake or a pond or something. And for whatever reason, I had to get in the pond too. I guess I had to save him or something. So we had this director who was, you know, it's a lot to manage, a lot of special effects, a lot of safety issues. And they tell us, okay, go ahead, get in the water. And it's nasty. And so I swim out there, and he and I were just kind of bobbing around, waiting for them to go. And I finally just went, say action, dude, say action! And so they said action, and it became a saying on the set, so I had baseball t-shirts made for everybody that said, just say action, dude. I don't know, it was just one of those odd, they had showers for us as soon as we got out, because it was supposed to be like, it was like a bacteria filled, nasty. You know, I mean, that was probably, was a memorable one.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have. Please put your hands together.